then what do you pretend to do?
The date?
You're addicted and you're not thinking straight.
The date was February 23rd, 1905. 4 businessmen met in downtown Chicago, Illinois, and the first Rotary Club was founded. In the beginning, Rotary evolved from a lonely man's hunger for friendship and fellowship. Paul Harris began a movement 90 years ago that now encompasses more than 27,000 clubs, 1 million plus Rotarians in 151 countries. Paul Harris once wrote, "This is a changing world. You must be prepared to change with it. The story of Rotary will have to be rewritten again and again." One of the chapters of the Rochester Rotary Club also began in 1905, even though our club was not chartered until 1911. This special chapter was written when Claire McIntosh, a Rochester Rotarian, sponsored a new member in 1939. And now, the rest of the story. Eugene, if you would come up. Would you please come up? You can come this way. When 4 young men met in Chicago in February 1905, the Rotarian whom we honor today was born shortly thereafter on March 26, 1905. Eugene was proposed for membership to the Rochester Rotary Club on June 6, 1939, some 2 weeks before I was born. Throughout the years, Gene has demonstrated service above self through his active involvement in the community service, the play, the industry committee, and our Polio Plus campaign, and that's just to mention a few. It was in 1977 that Eugene was honored by his family as a recipient of a Paul Harris Fellow. At that time, Eugene was celebrating not only his 72nd birthday, but 30 years of perfect attendance in Rochester Rotary. Just last month, Eugene celebrated Rotary's International 90th birthday, and as Don said, this month he celebrates his 90th birthday. Eugene also celebrates 47 plus years of perfect attendance in Rotary. Eugene is known to Lois as a devoted husband, to Don and Shirley as dad, to Todd, Jennifer, and Jonathan as grandpa, and to this club as Mr. Rotarian. So on behalf of the Rochester Rotary Club, it is my honor and distinct pleasure to recognize you with an additional Paul Harris Fellow.
I don't have any script, but I smile and show the appreciation for all the things that have been done here, and I appreciate it very much. Don mentioned the four-way test. And I think of the four-way test, and I say, well, is it true? Well, I did write that story, and I wrote many more, but he picked one out that shows that I'm not always perfect, but I can be a little sly once in a while. Is it true, and is it fair to all concerned? So when I think of all the concern of the wonderful Rotarians I've met, the fathers of many of the boys that are here today that I associated with, I say, well, certainly four-way test, it's true, it's fair to all concerned. Then when you think of the fairway test, you wonder if it has any more blessings to it. So as I think of the four-way test, I think of all the blessings I've had from this Rotary Club through the years. I can't believe that I'm 70 years old. In the last few months, it's added on to me so that I feel a lot older, but when I come here, I feel a lot younger. And when you think of Rotary being a friend of all, the thought comes to me, I like to be a friend of all of those I meet from day to day. I like to help them all I can along life's rugged way. And though the task of life is hard, short and hard, we'll do the best we can. So when I think of being a friend, I look at Rotary and all of you, several here, and I can't help but feel in my heart that you have been a friend to many people that you need, and a friend to me, and I want to thank you very much. So as we think of the four-way test, it's true, it's fair to all concerned, will it benefit all those, and is it, I know the last one too, and will it promote goodwill? Well, as I look over here, I think it was Johnson that was trying to lead, and our Irish wives were smiling, and she was there with that wonderful spirit there. And then when I think of our wonderful president and the joy and the merriment he brings to this fellowship, we can't help but feel that that fourth thing of the four-way test is really true.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Each month, we recognize the members of Rochester Rotary whose birthday occurs in that particular month. We also, of course, give them an opportunity to make a contribution to the Jim Morgan Fund, which is what that round envelope in front of you with your name on it means. And the Grim Reaper, Don Rose, will pick those up after the introductions. When time permits, we usually have a question, but we're a little pressed for time today. Besides, I don't think that the response from the group means an awful lot anyway, because last August when we had the meeting across the river, they predicted an early settlement to the baseball strike. Okay? And then last November, this Auster group predicted Cuomo would be reelected. So, you know, their opinions aren't to be taken lightly. I submit they're probably not to be taken at all. So with that, we'll just press on and introduce the birthday table. We'll start way over on my left, your right here. Born on the 3rd, Mr. Bob Klinger, Rochester Rotary Charitable Trust Director, President, RAC Associates, Rochester Rotary member since 1980. And at the head table, in the discussion we had just before dinner, Terry Lattimore, our newest member, just introduced, born also on March 4th, and as you heard, he's a customer relations rep at RG&E. He's been extremely busy lately. I also, I readdressed my envelope and gave it to him. Born on the 4th, John Daniel, Senior Actor Member, Club Director, President of Paperwork Incorporated, Rochester Rotary member since 1976. John Clark, born on the 6th, District Manager, Central New York trained Rochester Rotary member since 1986. L. Davis, I do not see at the birthday table. I do not know if he's in the audience. L. Davis. Bob Burke, partner Burke, Grossman, Valenti, and I can't pronounce that name. Repka, Rochester Rotary member since 1991. Paul Steele, President Steele Electric, Rochester Rotary member since 1987. Joe Rixner is at the head table. Joe, partner H&A of New York, Rochester Rotary member since 1991. Born on the 12th, Gary Mecca, Chief Financial Officer, County of Monroe, Rochester Rotary member since 1993. Born on the 13th, Paul Warren, attorney, Borland, Brown, Code, Fowler, and Wilson, Rochester Rotary member since 1994. Born on March 14th, Greg Langdon, President, CEO, Family Service of Rochester, Rochester Rotary member since 1994. Born on March 16th, Lydia Burr, Assistant Vice President, Key Bank of New York, Rochester Rotary member since 1993. Born on the 22nd, Mr. Frank Clark, Senior Actor Member, President, Associated Electronics Allies of Rochester Incorporated, ALA, Rochester Rotary member since 1960. Born on the 22nd, Bob Mabey, Club Vice President, Club Past President, 1990-1991. President, Rochester Rotary Service Foundation, 1992-93. Senior Active Member, Rochester Rotary Charitable Trust Director, Senior Vice President, Investments, Prudential Securities, Rochester Rotary member since 1981. Born on the 24th of March, Bud Knapp, Project Architect, SWBR Associates, PC, Rochester Rotary member since 1992. Lee Kirk, I saw Lee come in, but he's not, oh, he's way down at the end there. Lee Kirk, President, Lock, Stock, and Barrel Gifts, Rochester Rotary member since 1983. Born on the 26th, we've already been introduced to, Mr. Eugene Alhart. Senior active member, Rochester Rotary member since 1939. Fred Beluccio, the keeper of the attendance records. Born on the 29th, senior active member, Rochester Rotary member since 1958. Yours truly, Jim Isaac, Club Vice President, President Isaac Heating and Air Conditioning, Rochester Rotary member since 1981. Also on the 29th, Mr. Bob Moore. Bob is Club Vice President, Office Managing Partner, Deloitte & Touche, Rochester Rotary member since 1989. Rich Warshaw. Rich, born on the 29th as well, President, Retail Bank, Rochester Rotary member since 1990. Born on the 29th, Bob Kirk, News Director, WROC TV, Rochester Rotary member since 1994. And pass over Peg Steffen. Peg Steffen is TV host of Life Steps. She's also a columnist for Golden Times, and she's a Rochester Rotary member since 1992. And we'll see as Bob Hurlbut and Donna Phillips, Milt Caulfield. Oh. Okay, we'll all give the birthday recipients a nice hand. We'll ask them to sit down, and we'll all stand, and we'll all sing happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you.
We also have a drawing each month, and the winner this month is Lydia Ford.
Yeah, if you could help me get them up here.
Rotary.
For some unknown reason, I feel mighty tall today, so instead of using the thing, I would like to now have Rich Orzik and Joe Rickner. Rich is and Joe are both co-chairs of the LPGA committee. Rich is Director of School Business Instructional Demonstration Projects in the Rochester City School District, and Joe is a partner of H&A of New York, both members, one since 1992, which is Rich, and Joe since 1991. It's all yours.
Thank you, President Pete. Honored guests, Rotarians. It's quite exciting for Joe and me and representatives of your LPGA committee to come before you today. We're soliciting from you your physical, your spiritual, and of course your financial support for the 1995 Rochester International LPGA. You need to know that some 50 to 55% of the profits from the Rochester International helps to support our Sunshine Summer Camp program. However, we continue to need your help and your support in participating in the events, in participating in the tournament, as well as volunteering. We have something for everyone at the LPGA. First, on the 22nd of May, there is Defending Champions Day at Locust Hill. And that's followed by the hole-in-one contest the week of May 31st through the 9th. That particular event has generated some $59,000 last year for our kids. And we're projecting somewhere around $70,000 this year. We have 3 sites and 1 new site. The 3 sites are St. John Fisher College, the Henrietta Town Park, Webster Golf Course, and the new site, the Woodlands out Route 104, just past Greece. So everyone who lives in our community, in our metropolitan area, can participate in the hole-in-one. Of course, Bob Klinger is coordinating this successful event, along with marketing the needed funds we get from the skyboxes and the big top. Don't forget our Pro-Am putting contest on Tuesday, June 13th, at the Locust Hill. Ron Axelrod is our contact. We need your participation and help at the Junior Clinic. That'll be held on Tuesday the 13th also at Executive South on East Henrietta Road. And the Pro-Am putting contest at Locust Hill. Our committee needs your help on Sunday the 11th to rope off Locust Hill for the activities and events that will begin on Monday. Extremely critical. Mark Schwartz is helping coordinating that. And lastly, our Rochester concession tents number 1, opposite the tent T, and the Rochester concession tent 2, opposite the 9, need volunteers. Joe will brief you on those needs. And in the lobby after this meeting, we'll be there looking at you, hoping that you'll sign up. Thank you for supporting the LPGA and our kids. Joe?
As Rich said, one of the big areas that this Rotary Club supports is the concession tents, and we have 2 of them. I don't think there are any other Rotary clubs in the district that have the 2 that we have, or have 2 as we have. We need approximately 300 volunteers to man these tents. Last year I think we had like 270. You do not have to be a Rotarian to help us. There has been handouts, or there are handouts at the table that indicate the shifts that we will be looking for. They generally run from about 3 to 4 hours each. They're either in the morning or in the afternoon, and they start on Monday and run through Sunday. If you volunteer for one of the shifts, you will be given a badge that will get you access to the tournament for the day in which you do the work. If you volunteer for 3 individual shifts, you'll get a pass for the entire week, so you can come and go and participate in clubhouse activities. We did make a separate mailing to everyone who worked last year directly to their home. In last week's edition of the Spoke, there was another mailing, and just so that the third time might be the lucky time, we put one on every table, and we'll be in the back collecting these at the end if you would like to volunteer and save your 32-cent stamp so you don't have to mail them. As Rich said, we will have a table at the back of the hall for the sign-ups for the concession tents. There will be also a sign-up sheet to help with the operations for Mark Schwartz Committee. And also, if you want to volunteer and participate in a Pro-Am putting tournament, our Rotary has signed up for 4 slots on there. There'll be 4 members per slot, and we will have a pro as part of the 4-man team plus a pro. It will cost $50 to enter into the Pro-Am, and there's a sign-up sheet back there for that. So we're looking forward to all of you participating, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Moving right along. We are now in our 37th week, as Don Alhart said, in the first week of being held hostage. But it's, as Eric said to me last night as I was bowling, he said, Peter, you're on the downhill slide. And it's a little sadness, but it's been a great year so far, and we hope that you continue to support our Tuesday luncheons as you do right now. And I thank you for that. Our membership drive is now 14 plus. We have about 25 people who have been recommended to join this club. So I'm pretty sure that by the end of May, we should have that magic number of 50. Don't forget the district conference that's coming up in April if you still would like to go. And now what I like to do is have one of the 4 people of the 37 weeks that has joined me to have lunch with the president come up to draw a name. 4 people out of 37 isn't bad. We're going to make it 5. Wilfred Schroeder, Rochester Gas and Electric. He must be out doing some PR. So we thank him for his donation on behalf of the president to the Jim Morgan Fund. I know time is fleeting, but John Mitchell does not come to Rotary as often as I like him to. So as the opportunity presents itself, John, would you please stand and try to be as tall as I am? John gave me John gave me a notice, and he said, boy, this is great, isn't it? And I said, sure is. Where'd you go over the last couple of weeks? And John told me he was in the Caribbean. And the Rotarian of the Barrington Rotary Club wrote here, special thanks to so-and-so. I was off cruising last week in the Southern Caribbean, and every day was a perfect day in paradise. But one of the interesting parts of the trip, however, was the fact that our dinner companions for the week included a couple from Rochester, New York, both of whom are Rotarians, John and Connie Mitchell. Connie was selected as Rotarian of the Year a few years back. The Rochester, New York Club has approximately, John exaggerates wherever he goes, the Rochester, New York Club has approximately 600 to 700 members and 600 to 700, which are great numbers, John. But as John said, I'm going to be fined for this, and since he hadn't been here before, last year it was your conscience be your guide. A couple years ago it was $10 or whatever. This year my minimum fine, John, is $25 to the Jim Morgan Fund. But after you write that, your conscience can be your guide from that point. But we thank you so much. You can't talk, John. Thank you very much. Let's thank John. And
where's his Rotary pen?
Hubert, you're a past president, so you have to take care of that. I do not fine people for the Rotary pens, but thank you for remembering that John will have it from now on. I know I'm running into time, but I would be remiss if I did not ask Don Alhart just to stand for a minute. A couple weeks ago we had what we call the ES95 Easter Seals celebration, and without Don's effort, without Channel 13's effort, it would not have been the success it was. And on behalf of this club and the other suburban clubs in this area, I thank you, and we all thank you. To introduce our program, Howard Relland, who has been a great Rotarian, honorary Rotarian, during his time as district attorney for Monroe County. He will now introduce our guest speaker.
Mr. Alhart, I just wanted to express my congratulations on your 90th birthday, and as a special pledge for that 90th birthday, your son Don has checked with the weather people at Channel 13 and has guaranteed us the same kind of weather we're having today for the rest of March. And I think it's really nice. And there was, I think, one of the other channels, Don, that I recall, Channel 10, that if they don't achieve what they expect within the 5 degrees, then they contribute $50 to a charity of their choice per day. Maybe you could do that, sing the Green Lotto today. You could contribute that if we go below 70 for the rest of March. Perhaps Don could do that for Rotary for the sunshine. Yeah. Getting serious now. It's my pleasure today to introduce Mayor Bill Johnson. Mayor Johnson has brought a tremendous amount of vitality to our community in the short time that he has been mayor. Those of you who were here last week know that he was in Washington and could not be here, fighting for federal funds to help young people have summer jobs and to give them some hope that there will be summer jobs available for them. He has been active everywhere. He has been in Albany lobbying for state funds for city projects that are very vitally important. Last Saturday, he was at the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I don't know if he was singing, but I know he was doing a lot of waving and got a tremendous reception there. And that evening, he was at the Rochester Philharmonic asking people to support the Philharmonic and also bringing to everyone's attention that this year will be the first year of the introductory American Music Festival for the city of Rochester. And that's something that he has wanted for the longest time and is now brought to us as a result of becoming mayor. I've seen Mayor Johnson in a number of events, especially with victims of crime, and no one that I have seen has done a better job in terms of letting people realize that the criminal justice system needs all the help that it can get. And he speaks to young people in every school in our community, to victims of crimes, to citizens, and says one of the most direct messages that I've ever heard. If you want things to improve in our community, then you have to do it yourself, and you have to help us in order to get those results and those achievements. Mayor Johnson has spoken to thousands of people and has given that message, and it's no coincidence that the Rochester Police Department has solved 3 murder cases that are over a year old as a result of citizens coming forward. I know that he will share with us today a great deal of his thoughts about government and about his experience as mayor. And for all of the fellow Rotarians, it is a great pleasure to have Mayor Bill Johnson here with us today.
Thank you very much, Howard, and I am delighted to be here. First, I must say also, Mr. Alhart, I do commend you on your 90th birthday, and I'm always intrigued as a former Rotarian to hear about these people who have 37, 40, 45 years of perfect attendance. When I was in Rotary, I could hardly muster 37 days. But I do commend you for reaching a real milestone, and I wish you many, many more years. Let me say also, in terms of Howard, I thank you for the generous introduction. I want to cancel out one pledge that Howard put on to Don. I am going, some of you know I am a baseball fan, and despite the fact that the Major League players are on strike, I am leaving tomorrow for my annual pilgrimage to spring training, and I thought it would be a terrible shame for all the sun to be shining in Rochester while I was in Florida, so I managed to have it canceled for a few days so that I can enjoy, postpone really, so I can enjoy it when I come back. And on a sad note, let me just say to you, some of you who might not know, I just received word just as I was leaving my office, and some of you work with this gentleman in this community, that Will Spradling, former Vice President of Xerox, died last night of a heart attack. Some of you might know Will, and I just wanted to pass that on to you. I hope that you will extend your condolences to his widow. Mikhail, I'm mindful of the time, and these remarks timed out to 24 and a half minutes, and when I watched that we were going over time, I did go and excise some of the things. I didn't want to be in the position I was some years ago at the Brighton Rotary, where they rang the bell on me halfway during my speech, and I had to go around finding another place to give the other half of that speech. So I do want to move on. Mikhail Gorbachev once said that those who are late will be punished by life itself. Well, as Howard indicated, you know I'm a week late. As you know, I was supposed to speak here last Tuesday, and instead was in Washington fighting to restore critical job training and youth employment programs to the budget. I want to thank Carol Ritter for switching dates with me on extremely short notice. She enabled me to accept a rare invitation. I don't know if you realize the significance of the occasion. A progressive Democrat invited to testify before a conservative Republican body. Added to that was the fact that I was asked to speak on behalf of the nation's mayors. It was indeed a great honor, but I want you to know that if I could not have made that switch with Carol, that I was to prepare to decline that opportunity rather than renege on my commitment to Rochester Rotary. I realize that most, if not all of you, expect me to speak about metro government today. It is an issue that has received a lot of attention lately. And I might add that it is a well-deserved attention, because metro government, or something very similar to it, has led to more efficient government, healthier economies, and reduced social disorder in metropolitan areas around the country. Cities with metro-type governments like Charlotte, Seattle, and Jacksonville, booming cities, all of them, serve as examples that we would do well to emulate. And I hope that I have another opportunity to share my thoughts about that subject with you. But today I want to speak about a more pressing matter, a matter so serious it has the potential to harm the short and long-term economic future of Rochester, New York State. I'm speaking of Governor Pataki's proposed budget. I hope you will listen carefully to what I'm about to say and not dismiss my concerns out of hand. I believe that my record since coming to office as someone who is willing to cut costs and hold down spending, as someone who campaigned on the need to get government to live within its means, as someone who is seriously pursuing consolidations, collaborations, and regional solutions. All of this qualifies me as someone given to thoughtful analysis and not to whining and naysaying. When Joe Louis was asked who hit him the hardest during his boxing career, he replied, "That's easy, Uncle Sam." Like Joe Louis, many of us send a healthy chunk of income to Albany and Washington year in and year out. And when we see a small return on our investment, we question whether this money could be put to better use. Governor Pataki pledged to reduce the personal income tax by 25% over 4 years. This amounts to a $6.8 billion cut by 1998. And when someone offers to return $6.8 billion to us, we can pretty much predict the response. But as a famous sage once said in life, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody, somewhere will have to pay. In the case of this budget, that somebody is everybody. Tax cuts are popular. That much cannot be disputed. But like everyone else, everything else, they have consequences, good and bad. And when we need to measure these consequences to see if the costs outweigh the benefits. That is especially true in a state that has a $4 billion structural deficit. From corporate boardrooms to corner stores, planning for the long term has become standard operating procedure. Why should government be immune? Why shouldn't Albany consider what the actions it takes today will do tomorrow and years down the road? Think about something for a minute. George Pataki's campaign pledge is a sacred trust to him. He promised it, and he must live up to his word, especially if he wants to be reelected. He learned about the state's $4 billion deficit the day after his victory from the outgoing administration. What a terrible turn of events. What is a person to do? Well, a prudent person may have reconsidered his options. Let's say that I was planning to retire now that my youngest child has finished college and my expenses were going to be greatly reduced. But then, my 10-year-old car needed to be replaced, and major repairs were necessary for my home. All of a sudden, my income needs increased rather than decreased. Can I still retire? During the Reagan-Bush years, we had a taste of government without foresight. Tax cuts that promised to revive the economy led to a decline in private investment, falling weekly salaries, and rising bankruptcies across the country. When all was said and done, the Reagan-era tax cuts had a detrimental effect on the majority of working American families. Only those who were already prosperous benefited. Unfortunately, the governor has chosen to base his budget on the same principles. The question we must answer is whether we will travel a supply-side route that is proven costly in the past, to lobby our state delegation to restore some of the governor's ill-advised budget cuts. I urge you to join with me in working towards real reform. If we care about the future of our community and the legacy we pass on to our children and grandchildren, then we must look beyond the political slogans and the 30-second sound bites. We must hold our elected officials to a higher standard of accountability and force them, us, me, to address and resolve real problems, not just the ones that get us reelected. We can solve this problem now, or we can pay for it later. Rotarians, I ask you that this one question, in the words of Eugene Alhart, does this budget meet the four-way test?
assist bring him down just a little bit. You know,
What's your opinion on the trial?
the OJ trial.
Oh, Harris, huh? Oh, resemblance out there.
It's probably the worst thing that's ever happened to criminal. I think he could have done a better job.
That was what we were hoping, you know.
Yeah, but it just.
I mean, that's great.
No, I mean, just in terms
You
of.
said you were 70.
Police aren't going to do
You
that.
feel 70.
Crazy
Well,
night.
I did.
They're going to be trying themselves. I saw Lou across the tobacco and all that.
Hey, Buzz.
Thank you for everything.
Very good.
Oh, and also, the fireplace in there would make a good